Okay, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us here on day 2 of Sushi Tech Tokyo 2026. Once again, my name is Justin Patterson, your MC for today. さあ皆様ここで、再開させていただきます。本日寿司テック東京2026、Day2 となりましたけれども、こちらのステージにて引き続き司会を担当させていただきますのは私ジャスティン・パターソンです。皆様どうぞよろしくお願いします。Thank you very much. So just a quick reminder, we're going to start our first panel of the day. And after the panel, this is a little bit dependent on the availability of the panelists, but there might be a chance for a little bit of a networking session off to the back right side of the stage. So as it's facing from your guys' line of sight is back to the back right side, depending, as I said, on the availability of our speakers. So if you have a few moments, come on over and take a look. Okay, so now without further ado, we will be beginning our first session for today. 最初のセッションに参りたいと思います。AI は次のフェーズへ、インフラから社会実装へ、大規模活用と実績の鍵を探る。The next phase of AI from infrastructure to impact. So let's welcome our panelists to the stage. ぜひ皆様大きな拍手でお迎えください。NVIDIA Corporation VP Startup Ecosystem at NVIDIA, Mr. Howard Wright. 皆様拍手でお迎えください。Right before him, Benhamou Global Ventures partner, Mr. Masaru Sakamoto. And now Howard should be the next one out. Can you come on out, Howard? Sorry, NVIDIA Corporation VP, Startup Ecosystem at NVIDIA. Thank you. Sorry, I got that a little bit backwards. All right, moving right along, Benhamou Global Ventures founder and general partner, Mr. Eric Benhamou. And of course, last but not least, AWS VP and co-managing director of AWS APJC, Mr. Rob Chu. Okay, so gentlemen, if you please be seated, and if you're ready to go, I'll just hand over the mic to you guys.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to start this off. Hopefully, we can make ourselves feel at home. So allow me to start the event by talking about as AI moves beyond its initial experimental phase, the industry is entering a critical transition from training-heavy infrastructure build-out to scalable inference, real-world deployment, and measurable societal and economic impact. Our panel today is designed as a high-level, forward-looking conversation, bringing together perspectives from AI infrastructure leaders, venture capital, and global ecosystem builders. The discussion will cut through hype to examine what is real and what is scaling today, and where the next inflection points and risks are likely to emerge. I have with me today Howard Wright from NVIDIA, Rob Chu from AWS, and Eric Benhamou from Benhamou Global Ventures, key leaders in AI who will share their forward-looking perspectives from the AI infrastructure to venture capital. I am, as introduced, Sakamoto, partner at Benhamou Global Ventures, and I have the honor and privilege of moderating today's panel discussions. So let's kick this off by asking each of the panelists to introduce themselves, who you are, and especially how you got to where you are today. So taking the home field advantage of being with Benhamou Global Ventures, let's start off with Eric. Eric.
Thank you very much, Mas. It's a pleasure to be here on this Sushi Tech stage. By way of introduction, our firm is a venture capital firm headquartered in Silicon Valley. We're a mid-sized firm, and we focus on early-stage investments. That is not seed stage. We don't like to invest in just people. We want to make sure that when we intersect a company, there's a product working, and there's an opportunity to achieve leadership in a category. What's special about us, three things. First, we only invest in AI-native companies, hence our presence on this stage today. The second is that we strongly believe that some of the best companies are not born in Silicon Valley. They're born in other centers of innovation, such as Israel, India, Western Europe, and now Japan. Having said that, we want for these companies to be serious about the US market and to want to achieve leadership in that market, which is the biggest market in the world. So we help them in that journey to become world leaders. The third thing that's special about us is that all of us on the investment team have an operator background. We build companies, we started companies, we ran businesses from startup to Fortune 100. So we understand what it's like to grow a company and to go through ups and downs. So that's what makes us special. Finally, we talked about AI native companies. We strongly believe that these are companies of a different kind. In fact, they're so different that we created an AI native startup playbook to help guide companies on what to do and how different they have to be from SaaS companies of just 10 years ago. Thank you.
Then Rob.
Hello, everybody. This is Rob Chu here from Amazon Web Services. I'm part of the AWS Asia Pacific, Japan, and China team. So many of you probably have heard of AWS. I just want to very briefly, show some numbers. AWS is the leader in cloud and AI. So last year, our annualized run rate is $142 billion. And then our last Q4, we grew at 24% year over year at such a big base. And then this year, we are investing $200 billion, mostly in AI infrastructure build-up. So when it comes to AWS in the Asia Pacific, Japan, and China region, so we have 16 data center regions, and then we have been operating in the APJC for 17 years, started in Japan. And then also AWS has been investing up to 3.77 trillion Japanese yen in our AWS Japan operation. We have 2 data centers here. So I look forward to have a great panel discussion with my fellow panelists.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Howard, please.
Sure. Howard Wright, VP of Startup Ecosystems at NVIDIA. Let's see if we can get this going. I have the unique pleasure of representing NVIDIA around the world, but my journey here to this stage took a circuitous route through Japan many years ago. Yes, I used to play basketball a long time ago. I had a short and non-illustrious career in the NBA, and I played for 4 seasons here in Japan. So I have been in love with Tokyo for a very, very long time. And in a room like this, if I never get a chance to say it, thank you, Japan, for the courtesy, the grace, the hospitality that you've provided to me and my family over the years. Last time we were here with Jensen 2 years ago at our AI Summit, and we had Sakana, and Masa came on stage as well. He's a great mentor to many CEOs in the States, including our own, so it's wonderful to learn. And then on the far right is my favorite meal here in Tokyo, which is Jojo and Yakiniku. Folks always think there's better places, but I am convicted to this for sure. One of the things that we talk about at NVIDIA is the 5-layer cake. Now, for us, we're just not a chipset company. We're a solutions company. We're an AI infrastructure partner with Eric, with Rob, with other partners. And at the bottom is land, power, and shell, and the energy necessary to build these data centers. The next layer up becomes the chips and the infrastructure. So this is what AWS and other hyperscalers build out around the world. You all are familiar with the model builders and then the applications that sit on top. We think of this holistically. We are proudly one of the only AI companies that literally works with every other AI company in the world. And we're here to make sure that partnerships extended through Asia Pac and specifically here in Japan.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for the introductions, and thank you, Howard, for kicking us off in the next topic of talking about the infrastructure and some of the meatier topics that we would like to discuss today. The Rob and Eric have also different views of the stack. So let's continue with Rob. Talk about how AWS views the AI stack.
Yeah. So certainly when people talk about AI, there are different ways to have the different stacks. So we mostly look at the AI stack from the enterprise perspective. From our perspective, the AI stacks, the most important one on the top is really the AI agents layer. The AI agents, they are going to be the digital workers for a company working side by side with the human employees to actually do the work for the company to create value. So this is the first layer. That's the AI agents. So obviously for the AI agents to work well, if you have just a few agents, that's okay. But if you have lots of agents, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of agents, you need to have an agentic platform to orchestrate the agents, to provide the service to the agents, enable the agents, and also to govern the agents, and also to continue to evolve the agents. So that's the second layer, which is the agentic platform. That's very important. And then the next layer is the data and the knowledge layer. So, okay, what differentiates my agents in creating value for my company versus my competitors? So that's really the data and the knowledge within your company. That's your secret sauce. That's very important. So very often, companies overlook this data and the knowledge layer. You've got to make sure your data is AI ready so your agents can do the work for you. And then the next layer is obviously the model layer. Today, the models, they are kind of providing the brain power for the AI agents. But if you look at the models, we have the global frontier models, and then we have the open weight models. The models are still evolving very fast. Today's leading model in 12 months, 18 months may not be the leading model anymore. So when you deploy your agents, you need to look at the particular work they need to do and then select the most relevant model that actually is capable to get the work done fast enough and also with a reasonable cost. So model choice really matter. And of course, to run the model inference, you need to have the AI infrastructure layer. There we have NVIDIA as a leading player. We also have the AI accelerators. For example, AWS, we have our own Trainium AI accelerator. So those are the 5 layers. For most enterprise, the most important aspect is really make sure you have the AI agents, and that the agents are able to do the real work alongside the human employees to create value for your company. The agents use your own data and knowledge. It leverage the brain provided by the foundational models, which runs on top of AI infra. And also, you need to have an agentic platform to manage the tens of thousands of agents you are going to deploy. So those are our view of the 5 layers.
Thank you, Howard, and thank you, Rob. And then from a venture capitalist perspective, how do we set the AI stack? How do we see that, Eric?
Well, we actually like the 5-layer cake metaphor. I think it's very simple. It kind of looks like straight out of the 3D printer. But it could be a bit too simplistic in the sense that there's a lot of tools around these 5 layers. If you simply take a slice of these 5 layers, you'd think that there's only one model. But as Rob pointed out, lots of models have to compete. Lots of models should be considered. And for any given inference, you may actually use multiple models and check one against the other. The point is that there's a whole set of tools on the side that help applications make the best out of the 5-layer cake. And these tools, in fact, capture a lot of the value add, the know-how, the secret sauce of application developers. Many of these tools, in fact, contain vertical knowledge specific to an industry. Many of these tools include cybersecurity protection tools to ensure that the entire structure is protected. Many of these tools help you understand performance, cost. How many tokens will this model generate versus this other model? So in order to make the whole thing work, you need to have good tools. And what's important for VCs is that while not every VC can invest in the next frontier model, many VCs can find very interesting tools companies who truly add value either on a horizontal basis or along the line of a vertical industry.
Thank you, Eric. And so this is forming what could be viewed as the new ecosystem. And we're starting to see areas like physical AI, humanoids, edge AI. but what's real and what's speculative, and what are the timelines of these areas? And any new areas emerging over your horizons? Let's start with Howard, given that NVIDIA's product impact, then Rob on how this plays out for AWS, and then Eric, tell us more about the VC perspective and how we're placing bets.
Sure. So at NVIDIA, in our startups team, we're lucky enough to work with over 38,000 startups around the world. We know what excellence looks like. We help them with their MVP, we help them find product market fit, and we help introduce them to capital like Eric or Plug and Play and other folks that are here. The job really is to captivate the hearts and minds of the most important startups, the most important VCs, and the most important researchers around the world, and get them up and running to democratize access to compute, to democratize access to the cloud, and most importantly, to democratize access to collaboration with NVIDIA. This is what we do, and I would say there is probably not a better time to be a startup worldwide, because you can access beyond geographies, you can access cash from other zip codes in other hemispheres. Now is the time, with the money that was invested in 25, even more seems to be pouring in 26. Now we'd like to tell the startups, fortune favors the bold right now, and as long as you have a solid business plan and defensible IP and can get in front of folks like Eric and others, or run on AWS's world-class stack, these are the opportunities that they will write stories about years from now.
Wonderful. At March's GTC, Jensen came out with his wonderful toys. Could you elaborate a little bit more about some of these physical AI, humanoids, and edge AI? I think the audience would love to hear a little bit more.
I feel uniquely disqualified in Japan to talk about robotics, given the history of robotic success here in this country for so many years. But the verticals from healthcare, life science, to fintech, to fusion, to quantum, to now to humanoid robotics and physical AI, all of it is exciting, and all of it can be accelerated by things that we do at NVIDIA and with other partners on this stage. So we don't necessarily have a favorite vertical, but all of them are ready to be improved. All of their data is ready to be accelerated, and we're here to help you do that at NVIDIA.
Well, thank you. And then Rob, how does this play for AWS?
Yeah, so going back to Marcel's question, he asked about what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. My day job at AWS is really to help enterprise to unlock the value of AI today. So I'm really focusing on what's going to bring value to the enterprise in the coming 6 to 18 months. So what we are seeing is enterprises are really deploying AI at scale, trying to get the real business value out of it. So what we are seeing in some of the horizontal areas, such as in AI-powered software engineering, that's really, basically everybody is doing that. If today your software engineering team is not using AI-powered software engineering, they are falling behind. This is not a prediction. This is a reality today. Also, we are seeing is, for example, in AI-powered customer interactions, also in AI-powered knowledge worker scenarios, those are really the leading companies. They are deploying them at scale. They are getting real benefits out of it. Of course, what's going to create the most value is really in the industry-specific and the company-specific business scenarios. There, we're also seeing the leading companies they are experimenting. They are trying to get value out of that. If you look at a longer horizon, what's going to happen next 3 to 5 years? So I think, for example, physical AI in a well-defined, scenario, well-defined, environment, such as in warehouse, such as in maybe in convenient, supermarket, in agriculture. I think the physical AI is going to really be deployed and create real business value. As to the longer, arc, whether the humanoid robots is going to roam the street or whether we are going to reach AGI, again, I'm not really qualified to speak on that. I think it may happen. I will leave that to maybe the frontier AI labs to see what's the timeline for that. And then going back to the question on physical AI and Japan, I think Japan actually has a very unique angle, to really innovate in physical AI. First, if you look at the industrial robotics, I think Japan is the company who really deployed the industrial robotics at scale. That's the global leading. And then physical AI is basically the AI systems that can perceive, that can reason about, that can actually interact with the physical environment. So if you basically bring the AI brain to the industry robotics, then you have a very strong physical AI play there. So I think actually Japan has a real angle. Also, from the demand side, we have the aging society, we have the shortage of labor, so there's a real demand. And then there's the industrial robotics capabilities, and then there's also innovation in the AI, brain space. And then also we have the world-leading, companies, brands, whether it's Toyota, whether it's Sony, and then we have actually the possibility to actually scale not only in Japan but also globally. So I do think Japan has a very unique strength for physical AI.
Well, thank you very much. And that kind of opens up the conversation for Eric. Venture capital is in the business sifting through the BS and what's real, what's not. So I'd like to hear from Eric what the venture capitalist view on hype and what's real and what's not.
Yeah, I largely agree with the remarks from Howard and Rob. But to pop up one level, I find it helpful to remind ourselves that every major technology disruption does not happen in one shot. It happens in 3 waves. The first wave is always around infrastructure. The second wave is around the operating system or the software around it or the service providers. And the third wave is around applications. And usually the value created in the third wave dwarfs the value of creating the first and second wave. I happen to be sharing the stage with the company that really led the first wave and also the company that led the second wave. We believe that the companies who will lead the third wave, which is applications, will totally be venture-backed as well as large enterprise-backed. This was true in the era of the PC 2 generations ago. This was a disruptive technology at the time. This was true 1 generation ago, the era of the browser. When Netscape introduced its browser, it made it possible for a few years later companies like Amazon to emerge, and eBay, and Netflix, and Salesforce. It takes a few years, but when that third wave starts to unfold, it is really powerful. So we, of course, as venture capitalists, we try to identify these winners early when they're just little startups with an idea, a product, and just a few customers. But we have found very promising companies. In the world of physical AI, I was mentioned before, we invested in a company that automates the process of recycling. It identifies through AI all the objects to be recycled, and it controls robots that will take these objects and put them in the right bins. Coke bottles with aluminum, plastic bottles with plastic, and so on and so forth. Incredible time savings, productivity savings, replacement of really low-quality jobs by high-quality jobs. Another company uses AI to analyze satellite imagery and understands how vegetation grows and sometimes interferes with your physical assets. So if you're an energy company with power lines all over the states, all over the country, you want to keep track of all these trees who might interfere with your infrastructure and perhaps ignite a forest fire. If you're a telecom company, similarly, you have transmission towers, you want to make sure that a tree that goes in the line of sight of 2 transmission towers, this has to be detected early. And you cannot afford to just send a truck, dispatch a truck to analyze every tree on the state. You have to use AI for that. These are just 2 examples of really physical AI companies that connect to the real world, which are already thriving today. And I'm sure there'll be hundreds of others in the next few years.
Yeah, so I very much agree with what Eric just said. I think in whatever the innovation, technology innovation, the first wave is always happening on the infrastructure layer. But over time, the value will really migrate up to the application layer as well as the application platform layer. So we are of the same view. Although many people think AWS is a hyperscaler, mostly focused on infrastructure, that is true. We are investing a lot in infrastructure. But we also believe, today, if you look at the AI silicon, everybody is talking about NVIDIA GPUs or whether the ASIC accelerators, for example, the Trinium from AWS. Also, lots of people are talking about the models, the leading frontier models or the open weight models. But the real value that's actually company, enterprise are going to capture is going to be in the deployment, scale deployment in production of the AI agents. So that's going to be where the biggest value is going to be created. So over time, we believe more and more companies will really pay more attention to the AI agents deployment at scale, as well as you need to have the agentic platform to manage all those agents. So it's like you have the HR system to manage your human employees in the future. Every company needs to have their agentic AI agents HR operating system. That's agentic platform. So AWS not only is innovating on the infrastructure layer, we also work with all the leading model builders, inference providers. We are also actually investing heavily on the agentic platform. That's the future HR operating system for agents. We are also innovating on the agent layer. So value is going to migrate up the stack.
Well, thank you. But we've been talking about the positive side of AI, but there is a dark side of AI. We're hearing this, we're reading this in the news almost every week. Meta laid off thousands of people last week. How do we cope with the negative side? What do we need to think about as we deploy or AI starts gaining more and more traction here? Howard?
Jensen often says that AI is not going to take your job. A coworker that understands how to mechanize and operate and leverage AI is probably going to take your job. We think about handing the tools back to the founders, back to the VCs, back to the employees. This is unlike any other technology transfer. It's probably akin to electricity from 300 years ago. This is the fourth AI industrial revolution. What we do and how we do it and with whom we do it will have ripple effects in economies all over the world, and it is our responsibility to lean into that. So coming back again to Tokyo, we're so proud to have over 400 startups right here in Japan. They are doing, billion parameter models, and they're doing things in cyber, they're doing things in healthcare and life science. It's just a wonderful explosion of Japanese technical expertise. As we talk about the known enterprise companies, the Toyotas and the Canons and the Fujitsus and NTT or SoftBank, we have the audacity to believe that some of the startups that we're working with right now, and some are also working with AWS, of course, are going to be unicorns, if not trillion-dollar market cap companies in the future. So we don't take ourselves seriously, but we take the responsibility to help and enable those startups very seriously. And we'll come back here next year and the year after and see which ones have really broken through and utilized all of the assets available to them.
And during our briefing, Eric, you had some strong opinions in this area, especially on the dark side. How do we bring it back to the good side or bright side?
Yeah, the best way to answer this question is to talk about one poll and one study. The poll I'm talking about is a Gallup poll that came out maybe 2 weeks ago that describes the attitudes of different countries, different people vis-a-vis the AI revolution. And interestingly, in the US, enthusiasm has given way to fear. More people in the US are fearful that AI may not lead to a better future for them. And it's only a minority that are truly excited about the AI future. Interestingly, these proportions are flipped in Japan. Japanese people are more excited about AI than are fearful. This is great for Japan because in order to achieve scaled deployment of AI, you need to have trust. People need to trust that this AI is going to do good things for them and for their society. And if that's not the case, then it is incumbent upon leaders, both governments and business leaders, to create that climate of trust. The study I want to refer to is one that came up a couple times already at Sushi Tech. This is a famous MIT study that came out in August of last year, which revealed that only 5% of enterprise AI prototypes lead to scale deployments. The other 95% do not. So the question is, why did these 95% prototypes never met expectations? Well, one thing I can tell you is that it was not because the model was not good enough. These prototypes did not fail because the model had failings. Clearly, models were not perfect then, and they're better today, but this is not the primary cause of failure. This is not the primary source of friction. There were really three core findings having to do with the substance of these prototypes, and two core findings having to do with the process. On the substance, it became very clear that the failed prototypes dealt with poor quality data, siloed data, as is the case in many enterprises, non-stitched data. The second, and perhaps even more important, is that these prototypes did not focus on high-value use cases. If you really want to get a return on AI, because you're sure to endure a fair amount of cost, you have to hit the jackpot. You have to go after big pools of value. And the third thing is that if you simply use AI to automate existing workflows, you are not going to get the biggest bang for the buck. You have to truly transform the work before you allow AI to play its role. And a good way to think about work is any job is nothing more than a bundle of tasks. If you break up a job into a bundle of tasks, you'll figure out which tasks are best performed by humans, which tasks should be delegated by agents, as Rob talked about before. And the important thing is to have an orchestrator. They'll figure out when to invoke a human for a particular task and when to invoke an agent and how to coordinate the two. So these are the three core findings which differentiate the successful deployments from those that stalled. But there are two others. One is, I guess I'll boil it down to just one. It has to do with leadership and trust. So those companies who were able to truly achieve transformative effects in their enterprises were led by people who believe in the future of AI. They stood behind these initiatives. The CEO and the entire C-suite stood behind it. They were not just moving their lips, they believed it. Amazon is an example of this. JP Morgan in the US, biggest bank, also is a leader in this case. But absent leadership, it's very, very difficult for an enterprise application to really get to scale. The leader has to inspire this, just like was the case with a generation ago, the migration to cloud or the migration to the internet. So these are some of the key lessons that I think can be derived from the MIT study. There are other lessons that maybe we'll talk about later from the startup world.
Thank you, Eric. I would like to drill down a little bit more on that and leave some time for a wrap-up. But teeing up this question and bringing it more relative to the audience here is starting off with my personal experience being involved in Japan and US markets for over 40 years. My concern, and maybe for many in the audience, is the risk of another Galapagos scenario or Galapagos scenario. What lessons can Japan take from global AI developments that you're involved in? Where can it differentiate itself, stay competitive? So start off with Howard, Rob, and then from Eric's point of view, we are going to invest in the Japanese marketplace. So where are we seeing the opportunities more specifically?
Humbly, I think Japan is in perfect position. Take advantage of some of the work that has been done to leapfrog and certainly punch above its weight. We noticed and spoke about the enterprises that are involved, the startups that are involved, the VCs that are involved. Japanese entrepreneurism and Japanese, it's a really subtle, ferocious competitive nature that the folks in the country have. And that has been demonstrated at every significant turn of the technology for the last 40, 50 years. We think AI will not be different at all. And Japan will become not just a fierce tiger here in APJ, but a dominant participant inside the story that we tell about AI. We think about Japan and the region as creators of AI, not just consumers of AI.
Rob?
Yeah, so I think Japan is actually uniquely positioned to be the innovator in AI because we have the industrial base. So I think the leading AI play for Japan is going to be industrial AI. And then also we have the operational excellence in our culture. I think this is really unique globally. No other countries can match the operational excellence. And also we have the very clear demand side signal because we have aging society, we have shortage of labor. If you combine all those together, so the demand side signal, the operational excellence, the industrial AI base. So I think Japan is very much well positioned to lead in the AI innovation in the coming years. What we can learn from the global success examples, I think it's very important to really shape fast, iterate rapidly, and also learn from the production deployment. I think since we have the operational excellence culture, we tend to say, hey, is this perfect? Not perfect, let's wait. But I think we should really shape fast, iterate rapidly, and learn from the production experience. I think what you mentioned, the Galapagos moment, is not about the culture. It's really about openness. I think what Japan should innovate is being the open innovator. Embrace the global open standard, and then really you get the sovereignty through participation, not through isolation.
And Eric?
So the Galapagos syndrome did apply to Japan maybe 20 years ago. It's interesting that Japan came up with very interesting technologies that only made sense for the Japan market, but they were developed in isolation from other global centers of innovation. This was the case for iMode, for example, the first wireless internet standard. This was the case for wireless payment systems. All of us who use Pasmo Suica cards, well, we use a different standards here in Japan than the NFC that is now a global standard. So these are, I guess, failed innovation attempts, failed from a global standpoint, which I think Japan has learned from. And what I see in Japan today is that they're really poised to take advantage of this wave 3 that I talked about before. Everything that I've heard from, let's say, METI and policymakers and enterprise leaders suggests that there is a genuine desire for Japan to connect to the global centers of innovation, to not operate in a bubble, but to be connected, but also to innovate on its own rights. So vertical AI solutions, vertical AI applications is really where Japan can emerge as a leader in this wave, taking advantage of industries where Japan already has some dominance, some leadership positions. We talked about robotics, manufacturing. We didn't talk about defense, and yet Japan has a card to play here. So dual-use technologies combined with AI are going to create opportunities for massive innovations. In Japan, you have a fairly elderly population that requires care. There's going to be a whole slew of applications, AI-enabled, oftentimes with smart robots, to assist in elderly care. We have a shortage of people that can be used to prepare food and serve food. We see this in restaurants. AI robotics for food preparation, food serving is going to be a reality. We already start to see it in many places here. But I think Japan will probably lead. I mean, they have all the cards to play, and the moment is now.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. With the remaining time that we have, I'd like to wrap this up in terms of the takeaways for the audience. Usually, these panel discussions, everyone is overloaded with information that we tend to forget what was talked about. So if you could wrap up in 2-3 points what the audience should take away with. And I'd like to start off with Eric, since we were talking about the Netscape moment. And this is actually round 2 for Eric, since he was on the board of Netscape. So Eric, could you lead us off on 2-3 bullet points on wrapping this up?
Yeah, you mentioned the Netscape moment, and there's a lot of interesting parallels between Netscape and the ChatGPT moment of November 22, in a sense that in both cases, the world at large, so consumers, not just specialists, but consumers discovered the power of a new technology and were exposed to it in a way that was accessible. This was true of the browser in the early 1990s. This was true of the chatbots 3-4 years ago. So in many ways, it's similar, but what's different is that today, this change is more profound, because this change basically doesn't merely enhance the productivity of individuals. It completely changes the cognitive task allocation between humans and non-humans. So that's really what's powerful about this. It's a turbocharged Netscape moment, if you will.
Rob?
Okay, so I think AI is no longer a technology question anymore. AI is really about the business operating. It's a business operating question. So AI is real. We need to embrace AI. And also, if you look at the value, the value is actually migrating up the stack from infrastructure to the actual business impact. And then the bridge is really the AI agents, massive deployment, working alongside the human employees to create value for the company and for the customers.
And Howard, I think you have a special message for us wrapping this up.
As we close, I think of the operative word, Masasan, as being access. There's never been a better time for developers to have access to code and SDKs, for startups to have access to VCs, for enterprises to have access back to those startups to really disintermediate and bring something forward. One of the things that we like to do is almost nobody cares about what I have to say on these stages, but everybody seems to care what Jensen has to say. So we proudly represent Inception, which is NVIDIA for startups, and we'd like to leave you with this moment here, if this works.
NVIDIA is still a startup at heart. For over 2 decades, we have been reinventing the computing stack. And today, NVIDIA accelerated computing is the backbone of the world's AI infrastructure. We build time machines for scientists to see the future, a light-speed spaceship to explore the universe for the Da Vinci's and Einsteins of our time. We want to work with the best startups in the world. Inception is NVIDIA's commitment to partnering with the world's most innovative startups. With Inception, we bring NVIDIA's resources and scale to help bring your vision and bold ambitions to life. As part of the Inception program, you'll gain access to NVIDIA's state-of-the-art computing and software. But Inception is more than technology. It's a dynamic ecosystem of visionary entrepreneurs, industry experts, and NVIDIA's own innovators. We are here to actively partner with you on your journey, providing opportunities for co-marketing, venture capital introductions, networking, and direct collaboration with our specialists. Together, we will push the frontiers of AI, explore new realms of computing, and create solutions that will shape the future of technology and society.
As we close, if you're interested in partnering with us, we would love to partner with you. As I mentioned, we work actively with the AWS Startups Program and other CSPs and NCPs. So there's no exclusivity and it's free. Please come and join us and let's build the future together.
Well, thank you very much. This concludes our panel. In closing, we would like to thank the government of Tokyo for having us, the organizers who put this great event together, and please give a great applause to the panelists here today. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Another round of applause. Masaru Sakamoto, Howard Wright, Eric Benhamou, and Rob Chu. Thank you very much. Arigatou gozaimashita. If you please go ahead and exit the stage. Thank you very much. The next phase of AI, from infrastructure to impact. Just to let you know, just a little bit of a reminder.